Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about The Crossing, Season 1, Episode 1. It is simply called The Pilot. So we'll start spoiler free, because it's in Episode 1. Obviously, normally we'll do spoilers the whole time, but Episode 1 it's worth doing some spoiler free stuff, give you an idea if it's worth checking out, because it is the beginning of the show. So this is the new show from ABC, which you'll know because they keep proudly saying from the network that brought you Lost. So no surprise for what sort of audience they're hoping to garner for this show. So what is The Crossing? The Crossing is a sort of low-key science fiction show in which a group of people show up in the water at a beach, in the ocean. 400 of them are dead, they've drowned. There's about 40 odd, 47 I think the exact number was, that survived. And we find out, and this is not a spoiler, this is in the trailers, this is the premise of the show, we find out that they have basically fled America from the future and have came to present day because the future is very, very bad. To put it as simply as possible. And we find out a little bit about that in the first episode. Presumably one of the main mysteries the show is going to be dealing with is exactly how this all goes down, what goes wrong, and so on and so on. And we have a bunch of main characters. We have the local town sheriff. It's a small town. We've got a sheriff played by Steve Zahn, who's been in a bunch of stuff. There's a couple of faces I recognise. Reese, who's one of the people from the future. It was bugging me what I knew her from. It was really bugging me. She was in APB. Remember that pilot we did like a year and a half ago?
Yeah.
She was leading that, which I guess that means that never get picked up for season 2 because she's in this now. So she was in that, but I knew her face from something. So there you go. So so that's the show. That's basically the thing. You also have FBI lady who was on Mr. Robot last year, season 2. She was in.
Yeah.
And a couple of other things. Her name's Peralta. So that's kind of the setup. The FBI are kind of like not letting the sheriff in to see things. Like after they sort of realise all this is going on, they're all claiming they're from the future, and there's like 47 people all saying the exact same thing. This is weird. What's going on? There's a bit of a power play for okay, you don't get to see them anymore, sheriff. This is our jurisdiction. You stay away. But of course, he gets involved in other ways, and that's kind of how the plot develops. I guess I'll ask the question since the first episode. Did you enjoy episode 1 of The Crossing?
Some of it.
That's so positive.
I think the problem is there are a lot of the standard elements that are there are kind of like, okay, they're fine. They're not offensively bad, but they're just kind of there taking up time. But then there is stuff that is interesting. Some of that I can't mention because of spoilers.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, the premise in general is inherently quite interesting. That's why we're checking it out.
Yeah. Obviously, we'll dive deep in the spoilers
I think my biggest criticism, though, probably anyway, is that it's painfully on the nose at times. I get it. The premise is this thing. That's what this. Okay, it's refugees, it's asylum seekers coming here, running from this war-torn America. But there are certain lines where I'm just like, ugh, really? You're going to say that?
It's the network TV side of it shining through.
Pretty much.
I thought it was pretty decent, actually. I agree with that criticism. I think it suffers from some of the ideas being done recently in Travelers. There was elements of it when they were starting to reveal things. I'm like, this is starting to feel a lot like Travelers in some ways. A bit more simplified, a bit more straightforward, but the core ideas are kind of peeking in there. I will say it was fairly well directed. I thought some of the opening moments where they first find the bodies and stuff were pretty well handled. I thought, okay, it's setting me up for at least a certain level of quality, and I thought the cast for the most part, especially Steve Zahn, I quite liked. I thought he was quite likeable right from the get-go.
Yeah. He's kind of bland, but likable enough. He has some charisma to him.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't know if it's the character that's got anything likeable about it, or if it's just him.
Yeah, I think it's just him bringing it. Yeah.
But very quickly bantering with his deputy, they're quite quickly. Like, oh, yeah, right, I'm kind of on his side. He seems like a decent enough dude, right? Yeah. So where are we going from here? I think the biggest problem with it is kind of bland, but it's one of those things with network shows that I feel like they often are at the start, and then they develop and they get better, and I do think there's potential here. I can also see this just being bland the whole way through. It's hard to say after an episode 1.
No, it's rare that I can think of a single network show that's good off the bat.
What I can definitely say really positively though, is that there's not a single idea they brought up that I went, oh, I don't like that, or I groaned at, or didn't
Oh,
at
in
least.
terms of the ideas,
Yeah,
definitely. Oh, yeah.
like every idea was like, oh yeah, they could do stuff with that, or oh yeah, they can do that. This can be a thing.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, I agree with
and I can already see that they're setting up a villain of sorts. I can already see that they're like, okay, it's going to be this ragtag group that kind of form out of multiple parties to become the heroes of the show, and like
Yeah.
I can kind of see where like things can happen, and that's interesting. It's funny actually. I feel like going into this because of our schedule coming up in the next couple of months. Going into this, it was like, okay, unless this is really, really good, the chances of us keeping it past an episode one are very, very slim because we just have too much coming up. Returning shows alone are filling out the schedule. Never mind adding in a couple of other new shows that we think are more likely to, be keepers. And I do feel like if this wasn't a busy time, this would definitely be a show. Let's give it a few more and see how it develops.
No, I agree with that.
As it is right now, I don't think we can. We just don't have the time for it, which is a shame. But there is enough here that I would want to watch more. That I would want to see. Okay, let's see what they do with this in another episode or two, and see does it develop. Does things feel a bit more deep after a couple?
Yeah, I think something I will give it as a major positive in that regard is typically when I start a network show, the first episode is okay, let's set up the premise, and then I can kind of go, okay, I know what to expect week to week, give or take.
Yeah,
I feel like at the end of this, I don't really know what the week to week show is going to be.
I don't think there is a week to week show. I think this is just full on serialized.
No, yeah, that's fair, which is, I think, even rarer for network.
Yeah, which well, it is to a point. I mean, I guess if you compare it to Lost, Lost had the flashback structure that kind of made each episode feel individual,
Yeah.
but otherwise it was very serialized. There wasn't a whole lot. Like I mean, there was focus in it. The flashbacks
I
gave a
think
character an episode, but it wasn't.
Right. That's what I mean. I've only seen bits of that, but I know like, okay, each episode has a focus still. Whereas here, I'm going okay, so I can see okay, you can focus between the few different leads we've got, sure, but there's things to investigate clearly. I'm like okay, how does this plan out as a weekly structure? Because most network shows have a weekly structure of some sort, even the most serialized ones.
Yeah. Yeah, I just don't think it has one. It doesn't feel like it has one right now.
Right, and I'm using that as a positive because typically that's something that holds a lot of network shows back, in my opinion.
Well, you
Is
can go either
they
way. Some shows function better with that structure.
Oh no, they do, but often I find that they're so rigid in adhering to their structure that they lose some flexibility to grow. Whereas this is no, this is different for that.
No. I think the biggest problem it probably has actually is going along with this, what I said before, where we've seen Travelers do this recently, we've seen maybe other things do some of these ideas recently. I think, like, I'm looking at this and I'm like, oh, this reminds me a lot of like watching a pilot from like, around the time of Lost, maybe slightly earlier than Lost. It feels like that kind of era of TV, which is potentially a good thing because I liked a lot of shows back then.
Yeah, I miss network TV of that time period.
But here's the thing is though is that there's all these little beats that were playing out that I'm like, yeah, they're setting up that these two are, maybe have a spark early on. I'm like, okay, so we're setting that up, and I'm like, some of it does feel a little bit okay. We're checking the boxes of what the pilot of this type of show is supposed to have in it, which
That's true.
is not necessarily a completely bad thing. It's just it's both good and bad.
It's something we used to talk about a lot when we did a lot more pilots, especially for network TV. It's pilotitis, where
Yeah.
it kind of this is not actually a bad case of it because it doesn't feel rushed. Oftentimes pilots feel really rushed, just trying to hit all the information that you need.
Yeah.
Whereas this doesn't, but you can still kind of see the outline of the boxes.
Yeah. You can see the framework in which they had to fill in all the little bits. I'll give them credit. They got much further in teasing. Like I felt like I can talk about this more when we get to spoilers, but there's a certain reveal at one point that I thought that I think most shows that have been the end of the episode, but it went for like another third and gave me another reveal, and I went, oh, okay.
Yeah, and the second reveal feels like something that typically would be on a network show would typically be in another few episodes at least.
Yeah, because I thought that the first one I'm talking about that I thought was the ending until it kept going. I was like, yeah, that's a decent hook. All right, you've set up this idea, and then you've shown, oh, this idea is here, and it's like, okay, we can play with that.
Yeah.
That's your hook for the audience to come back next week. But it kept going, and it gave me a little bit more than that. So, credit where credit's due.
Yeah. No, I think the pacing's pretty good throughout as well. Like, even though, like you say, you thought you were at the end almost because of the reveal, that's just because of structurally how you expect the reveals to end the show, not because of it felt like it was on for particularly long.
Oh yeah. Well, it wasn't that it felt like it was too long. It went in quite quickly, actually. I have to say it flowed quite well. There was no, there was no dragging or anything like that. So yeah, I'd say overall I'm fairly positive on it. I think there's definitely some network sort of, what's the right word for us? Some network. My head's screaming stink. I don't want to say stink, because that's way more negative than I want to be. There's some network.
Trademarks.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to go for more of an analogy here. There's,
Yeah, but you're not thinking of one, so.
you know how when you buy prepackaged food, and it's still quite nice, but there's just that little sheen that feels fabricated.
Yeah, okay.
It's got that little sheen to it.
Okay, I know what you're on about.
Alright, it's not a freshly made sandwich with all fresh ingredients. It's wrapped in plastic and bought out of a store.
Yeah, it's not quite, oh, these are the leftovers, but it's just like, okay, this is the best we could do.
Leftovers is a good show.
It is.
But I don't want that to sound too negative, because what I just mean is that you can kind of feel its roots a little bit. And it's some of the networky stuff I actually kind of like, because like I say, we don't have a lot of good network shows anymore. But then there's some of them that, okay, this is why we don't watch a lot of network shows anymore for these other reasons.
Yeah.
So hit and miss. But no, I think I would recommend, if the premise sounds intriguing, I would recommend checking it out and seeing if you enjoy it, because you might actually think it's worth sticking around for. But we will not be back for another episode, because we are far too busy to take on another show that's, has a bit of potential but isn't super exciting as of yet. It's the sort of thing I might go back and binge if I hear.
I'd say I would, but the reality is I probably won't, because I say this a lot, that, I'll go back and check that out, and then I'm just way too busy, and I never do.
Well, saying you'll go back and binge isn't you saying that you'll definitely do it as soon as the season's over. It's just you saying, if I have time at some point and I want a show to watch, this is one that I would put on. That's all you're saying.
No, it's true, but I'm just.
You don't have to qualify every time you're saying, yeah, but I very rarely get to it, and I say I'm going to binge.
I have not said this phrase in a while, though. This will be something I'll get to. So.
No one's going to pull you up on it. No one's going to come back in 6 months and say, hey, Connor, did you not binge that yet? You said you were going to binge it. There's no binge police, Connor.
You never know. I don't trust the internet.
Anyway, let's go into some spoilers. So full spoilers for The Crossing. So we get this story of the future. We get this story about the Apex, which are this enhanced form of human being that came about, and basically they decided they wanted to rule the planet as the master race, essentially. And
it's very X-Men Brotherhood of Mutants, isn't it?
Yeah, it does kind of feel like that. It's about because the main guy, Caleb, who's like the main sort of refugee that we talk to, his birthday is in 150 years, give or take. So that's kind of, so maybe add another 40 on for when they come from. Yeah. Around then. So we're almost 200 years in the future, basically, and things were getting bad, and they heard rumblings, someone has developed this tech to maybe get us back in time, to fold time in itself and get us back. And they're under the impression that they're the first, although there's one guy who has a bit more information and is like, nah, there's been people before us, and they were here with a mission, which is where I was like, feeling Travelers vibes. I was like, okay, right.
Rival factions.
Yeah, rival factions, people with missions in the past to change it. Okay, right, we're doing some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Much more simpler, because Travelers is really complicated when you start getting into the nitty gritty of how that works. But yeah, I was okay, interesting. So even that itself's a bit of a hook. But so we're hearing about these Apex, these like super, because they say they'll get faster reflexes, faster everything, better perception. And obviously Reese, who's the mother of the little girl who's looking for her mother, who ends up on a boat. She ends up away from everyone else, so they don't know she's there. And at one point, like, because as soon as they said that, I was like, wait a minute, we just had a scene with her where she like droned out everyone else's noise and just listen to the TV from like across the room, because she's in like a restaurant and she like everyone else goes quiet and she just hears the TV.
Yeah, and you assume it's just her focusing at first.
But then you hear about these Apex, and I'm like, oh, is she one of them then? Is that what that is? Was that an ability? And sure enough, later on we see her like jump, like pick a jumpy superhero, someone with very good athletics, Spider-Man-y. It's kind of Spider-Man.
Yeah, Spider-Man works.
And I'm like, okay, right. So, and she came back with her daughter. So I don't think she's a villain. I think she did what she did because she's got a daughter, and she's not necessarily, because it makes sense that some Apex wouldn't agree necessarily with the rest of them. So.
Sure, yeah. And this is the part that interests me, because this was not in any of the promotional material. At least none of the ones that I'd seen. I didn't realize there were not quite powered people, but enhanced.
Yeah. That was new to me. It was nice not to know that, because it did give us and that was the thing I was mentioning that I thought would be the end of the episode. The scene where she gets the sheriff at gunpoint, forces him to take her to the bodies in the hangar, because there's 400 of them. And it kind of ends up in a bit of a fight where she's like in a standoff with like 3 guys with guns, and she just kind of lays them all out and then jumps out the building. She jumps up onto a truck and then jumps out the window, and it's these big jumps, these big 20-foot jumps. And I thought, oh, there you go, end your episode there, because that's your big hook. There's an Apex in the past or in the present.
Yes, her past.
Yeah, her past or present. And it's okay, right? Okay, there you go. That's a fun idea, and there's definitely things to explore there. And there's obviously drama that could come from that, where if the others find out about her, they might not trust her. Maybe they didn't know she was an Apex.
Yeah, and presumably this means her daughter is as well, because I'm assuming it's an inherited thing. Like if from the way they talk about it,
it's a fair assumption at this point. Unless we hear otherwise, but yeah,
I'm kind of assuming that's how she gets outed as Apex at some point. Is the daughter, does something, lifts something a bit further than she should, or jumps a bit further.
Yeah, like you said, there's a lot of the immigration stuff which is very on the nose about. As they're being interviewed and they're asking all these questions, and then they're debating amongst themselves, like, oh, we've been treated better here. It's like, well, they've given us food and they've given us this, it's way better. Because it sounds like in the future they're just hunted. It's just the Holocaust.
Yeah, the line I really hated though was along the lines of, this is America, at its peak, this is, everyone has rights and freedom no matter what. I'm like, all right, I get what you're saying. Calm down.
Well, yeah, obviously the point there is the irony of like, well...
Yeah, exactly, but it's a bit overboard with the way it says it.
But a bit more idealistic than maybe the truth is, but...
Yeah.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Because this is the thing, though. As much as there's another hook at the end of the episode, the hook at the end was kind of nullified a little bit, because they really telegraphed it before they did it. It was really obvious what was about to happen, because they had this one guy in the group of refugees who's like, hey, I want to talk to the president. And he's like, you can't just go to the president. What have you got? So, well, I want to exchange information for whatever, like things, a house, live comfortably, whatever he wants. And so, oh yeah, and he explains, okay, there was some before us. They were here for missions, blah 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 blah, and she calls into her like her not her boss per se, because she just met him. It's more like he's from the
just another department.
Yeah, Department of Homeland Security, I think.
Yeah.
But he's higher ranking than she is, and he's like, okay, I'll meet with him. I've got more clearance than you do, more power, blah 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 blah.
Yeah, but it's not the president, but it's a step up.
Yeah, but they meet in a shady road, and he's standing back in the shadows, and I'm like, I wonder what the twist here is going to be.
Yeah, I know.
And he's like, because he keeps like, oh yeah, people get sent back further than me did, and they had missions, and then he says, would you recognise their face? And I'm like, oh, here he goes, he's going to walk out into the light.
Yeah. And then, of course, immediately recognises him.
I'll say this, though. Here's what I like about this, at least at this point. I like that I don't actually know if his mission is a good thing or a bad thing.
Okay, how so?
Well, the way this episode kind of played it is as if he's villainous at the end. Like, it played it as if the other guy's scared of him, but I'm like, but if he's just trying to stop this bad future from happening, is he actually a bad guy?
Is he trying to stop that future from happening?
I feel like...
Well,
that's the thing, we don't know.
Trying to make it come around sooner.
Well, it could be, but I mean...
Yeah.
That's the thing. That's what I'm saying. We don't know.
No, we don't.
Like, other than the fact that the guy's kind of scared of him, like, there's really nothing to suggest that this is good or bad.
No, I mean that's fair. I mean, I think the assumption is based on everything the way he talks about them. It's like, oh, they came back with these missions, and the fact that then he is like, oh, no, he's like, right, good, I'm getting rid of you, like because you know too much. It's like, okay, that implies that it's something to hide, right?
Well, he never says that though.
But it's like it's kind of the implication. At least how I got it from the scene.
There wasn't really much of an implication though. He just kind of stepped in after he said that, and he says, "We've been here much longer than you think." It wasn't necessarily, "I'm about to whack you, so you don't talk."
No, but I don't know. It really felt kind of going down that way to me, at least.
I don't know. See, this is the thing. I think it's more murky than that. I feel like it's more kind of,
Okay.
you were supposed to think it was dangerous, but now it's more left up in the air. Because I
Okay.
mean, even if he's good, he wouldn't want anyone to know about any of this. So that's why it's out in a shadowy road,
Oh, that's fair.
in the dead of night.
I
So-
guess the show didn't do anything to tell me that he was potentially good. Everything it told me about this guy was like, no, they're here for evil purposes.
Yeah, but we only ever hear that from the guy who's scared though.
We do, yeah, that's
Who
true.
doesn't seem very trustworthy, to be honest. He's very much out for himself at this point.
No, that's fair. It's an unbiased. It's a very biased source.
Yeah.
I'll give you that. But the dark lighting doesn't really help, does it? Yeah, for the reveal and the shadows all ominous.
Ah, but you do that. Deep Throat was in Shadowy Lightning and All the Presidents, man. He was still there to do good things.
Okay, that's fair.
Like,
I'm just saying.
no, but this is the thing, though. I feel like this is too obvious. I feel like the obvious swerve is to him
No.
to turn out to be not a bad guy,
I agree.
Or-
That is
or
an
mo-
obvious twist.
or more likely, he's a good guy, but there are other ones who are bad. It's a battle of for and against. Like someone's trying to change the future for the worse, someone's trying to change it for the better.
That's fair. These are the obvious ways to play it. Like I'm saying, it's just the show. Everything it did in this episode told me one direction, which means it probably is the twist because they were going so heavily in that route.
So I'm right then. Thank you.
I'm agreeing with that. I'm saying probably. I'm just saying based on what it was telling me. It was telling me these things.
I came out of it just feeling like, yeah, he's probably a good guy.
Okay, fair enough. But that's just because of you're assuming the twists, right? Not
Well,
because
yeah,
of the
but-
information it actually gave you.
Well, no, but there's also a lack of information. They don't actually give me enough to tell me he's bad. You're
No.
making a lot of assumptions as well, just based on a couple of lines and the shadowy
that's fair.
lighting. I think it's intentionally not given his other things so that it leaves that ambiguity there.
It could be. It could be.
So, no, it definitely is. I know I'm right.
Well, you'll never find out.
What opposite? Hey, I might binge this later. I may find out. Yeah, I'll come back. I'll remember we had this conversation. I'll come back and I'll tell you, hey, Connor, you're an idiot.
Oh yeah,
I was right.
yeah. You definitely won't.
But another reason why I think that as well, because I feel like this is just the pilot. They have to set up a lot of things for potentially seasons and seasons of a show. I feel like it feels like that's the extra layer it needs. Is that there's good people back to change things and there's bad people back to change things. That's the extra layer.
Yeah,
No doubt there'll
makes
be
sense.
a villainous Apex as well. There'll be a villain Apex that's back in the past.
Oh, absolutely.
That's going to end up having a big fight with Reese at some point, and that should prove
Probably.
entertaining potentially.
I will say, as much as that's the obvious thing to do, that's the extra layer. It doesn't help separate it from Travelers very much, does it?
No, and obviously Travelers is a great show which did hit the ground running better. Although I do want to emphasize, I do think this hits the ground running a little bit better than what I expect from a lot of network pilots. I think it does do better than a lot of them.
Oh, definitely. I'm willing to accept that.
Because this was not a tedious watch, this was not a bad watch. Because often with network pilots, I have to feel a bit tedious and go, but there's potential there for it to improve. And while I'm still saying that, I'm still saying, okay, it's not maybe as good as it should be, but there is the potential there. I do think it's at a better starting point than what a lot of them start
Agreed.
with. So
Yeah.
So I do want to give praise where praise is due. But it's not amazing either. So check it out.
Yeah.
See if you like it yourself. Like I said, because I was mentioning the obvious like little beats that we're playing out, like the one woman refugee who like tries to talk to the FBI guy, and he clearly like has a crush on her immediately, and he's like, "Oh, I'm not supposed to talk to you guys."
Yeah, and then the sunglasses.
Yeah, he gives her the sunglasses. If anyone asks, you found those, and she smells at them. Also, they apparently don't have keys in the future because she doesn't know how to operate a key.
Yeah, no, it's a good point.
I mean, it's 200 years. It wouldn't surprise me if everything's just like eye scanners and shit. I mean, why
Yeah,
not?
yeah.
But
They're clearly not, or they seemingly haven't brought any technology back with them. If they did, I hope it's waterproof.
yeah, that was actually something I liked just from the concept when we first talked about it in the news. Is I like the idea that this was like, almost 500 people, but most of them died because they landed in the water. Like this was just a small fraction that actually made it through. I kind of like that.
No, it was nice.
But hey, so no, so yeah, you got those beats. You got the sheriff's like past. Like he separated. Like he had a bad history in a bigger city. Now he's here in a small town.
Yeah, this is the stuff where I'm like, okay, this is a network show.
Yeah, and he likes it. He's got a room for his son, who you'll get to see in the weekends. But I will say, I at least appreciate that him and his wife seem in pretty good terms.
Yeah, no, that's true.
That's nice for a network show.
They're at least civil with each other.
Yeah.
I will say a lot of this stuff that we're learning all this stuff here probably didn't need to be in the first episode because, let's be honest, with the premise like this, he was never going to be the interesting part of this episode, right?
He's the human part of the episode, though. He's the one you sympathise. Well, not sympathise, maybe, but he's the
He
one.
is, but things like learning about his past, I don't think that was exposition I needed in this episode.
Oh, sure.
I think that comes later.
Oh, sure. No, I was thinking more about his kid because I was actually surprised they didn't do something. I was expecting at the end when when Reese comes out of the house and he ends up kind of like tricking her and like getting behind her and like getting her at gunpoint, and then obviously at the end he's like, okay, tell me everything you know. So he's going to learn about all the future stuff. Well, not he believes it is another matter, but they'll be kind of teaming up. At least
you'd assume, yeah.
uneasy alliance, but kind of teaming up, and maybe it'll grow into more of an actual trust and bond later. But what I thought was going to happen is she was like coming in and she heard him on the phone, is that she was going to see a photo of him and his kid and like see he's a father, and that would be why it was so important in this episode to get all that, because she's like, oh hey, like he's a parent like me.
She can bond over the parent thing. Yeah.
It never actually quite did that, and I thought it would. I thought that's why they were hitting it so hard in this episode, that he's building the bed for his kid, and he's wanting to hear his voice over the phone, and it's not doing it wrong. It still humanises him. It still makes the fact
It is. I think maybe like one scene of it too much.
Yeah, because he cares about the little girl who's not got her mom, and like I really thought that when he was getting her name at one point that he was going to say, "Is your daughter's name this?" or something. Like I was expecting that moment.
Yeah, I will say it seemed really almost sinister at the start. When he goes over to the girl first, it's like, oh, she's a child. She'll give you information. She won't know not to say things.
He's very friendly about it, though.
No, it was, but it felt like he picked an easy target. It's like, oh, this is like a cheap interrogation.
Kids blurt things out. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
And of course, he just gets nonsense about the future, and he's like, "Well, that was a waste of time.
Yeah.
You guys interrogate everybody else. I'm off.
Pretty much.
I've got a bed to build."
Yep. Exactly.
So, no, but it's okay. It seems like a fine starting point and premise for a show.
Agreed.
We will not be covering more of it. We just don't have time because we've got so many shows coming back. Westworld's coming back, Handmaid's Tale's coming back, Legion's coming back, Expanse is coming back.
Yeah.
We just started.
Then you got Netflix on top of that.
Yeah, we just started the Terror. So much stuff going on. So yeah, but by all means, check it out. Let us know what you think in the comments of what you think of the pilot. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you for watching and listening. Get us on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. There's a link to that in the description. But otherwise, that's us. So thank you once again. We'll see you next time. Have you got any vanilla?